she was yelling at me, and I was just like, I just was just like, okay. And so it was too bad where it was like, I didn't want to go to Peter.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, that would just cause too much more issues. So I was like, I went afterwards, and I was like, I just don't want other students. And our like last week before the finals were due, they made us write our names and fill out evaluations. No, it's not long. So like, obviously told them that. I was like, all right, they're getting talked to. So.
Oh, I was like, what? Like, I get it.
And like,
You got emojis for every one of them.
It's like an achievement.
Every time.
oh, and then they nail, yeah.
They
that
made me
happened.
cry my first week.
Yeah, they did.
I cried.
No, not your first.
It just
Second.
With the little like animated confetti
Yeah.
balls.
No, that was men's.
Yeah, I cried.
No.
Yeah, you don't put it in.
Okay, guys, if you can do me a favor. Hey, guys, let's get going on this again. So in the folder for today's classes, there's a thing called viacompath.tiff. If you can bring that into Photoshop for me. Viacompath.tiff. And hang on just 1 second so I can get my screen to look something like yours.
Should we leave as it is and don't color manage?
Oh, that's great. That means this is set up wrong.
Wait, mine didn't do that.
I need everybody to go right now to their edit menu, down to color settings, and tell me what you read at the top. Okay.
I've got, yeah, North American. Did you ever turn your? No.
Because it's
So they just need to fix it on whatever the people do. It's setting to, when it comes on, it's set to North American general purpose.
Oh my
Thanks.
God.
It should be North American Pre-Press, not General, which is what mine was. So mine was set wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Give me just 1 second, guys, and I'll be with you. Edit menu, all the way down to color settings. It should read North American Pre-Press 2. All right. Do me also one other favor, if you can. There's another file in there I'd like you to go ahead and open really quick, because I just want to talk about a couple of other things first. And it's this M_7027_2019. It's that guy.
What do you want us to do in terms of color management?
You can go ahead and leave as is. There's no color in it anyway. It doesn't really matter. And when this other one comes up, I'm just going to see again what my auto would actually do to this. I think auto over brightens this part. It's an exposure shift. And again, I know this image is, I know this was shot using a color target, so I know that that part's correct. So I'm going to get rid of that part of it. and see what else got shifted in here. All of these things I can pretty much live with, although it actually burned the highlights out more, which I find really sort of interesting because it's pumping the contrast up. So I'm going to suck the highlights down just a little bit. But nonetheless, I'm going to open this as an object. And the only reason I want to do this is really quickly, I want to make sure that everybody is comfortable with how things went last week. So how was Sunny? Pain in the ass, right? How bad did you get lost?
I didn't get lost too bad, but I definitely went. I couldn't figure out some of the edges,
Right?
which you'll see in my file.
Okay.
Yeah. I understood like the selective mask. It was just hard to find everything and get everything.
It is. It
I
is.
need another breather.
Yeah, we're going to go through it. So here's the trick to Sunny. Yeah, turn it in tonight, please, no matter how bad a shape it's in. Turn it in tonight. Next week, you get a second chance to do Sunny. You get to do her again.
Does that mean like 4 better grades?
Yes, it does. So whatever ends up being the higher of your 2 grades is the one that will be for both. And we actually we'll start Sunny and we'll do as much of it as we can in class next week. So you'll have a good start on it at least, Lindsay.
Wait, so Sunny is again our homework for next week?
No,
In the future.
in the future.
The future cannot be just.
There you go. No, this week is all about using what we're doing now. It doesn't have anything to do with Sunny. Don't worry about Sunny, just turn the homework in. Okay, so what I wanted to make sure though, again, if you click on this drop-down menu next to channels, come down to palette options and pick the larger ones, you can actually get a reasonably good idea of the thumbnail. It helps. I do the very same thing over here for layers as well. Again, use the large thumbnails. There's a huge amount of information that you can spot in these guys if you get them big enough. Those little baby thumbnails, it's just ridiculous. You'll never see anything in here. So I just want to make sure one more time that we go over this. What's really going on in here is that these RGB, basically what these are is these are masks that are used to control the amount of red. This controls the amount of green. This controls the amount of blue. And the 3 of these together are what create this whole RGB channel right here. Now I'm going to show you something that's actually really misleading. Because I've told you before, you cannot have color in a channel. It cannot exist. So for instance, if you click on your foreground color picker and pick a red, or any color, doesn't matter. Once you click on your channel, you'll notice you don't get red anymore. You get the luminosity of that red, which is a light gray, but you do not get red. You do not have red anymore. You cannot have red in a channel. As a matter of fact, if you go over and you duplicate your smart object by simply clicking and dragging it down and add a layer mask to it. Actually, I take it back. Drag the layer mask off if you did that. Let's go ahead and rasterize this smart object so that we could paint on it if we wanted to. So to rasterize it, up to the layer menu, down to smart objects, can rasterize, or down to the rasterize menu and do smart object. Either way, go ahead and rasterize this. Now if you hit the B key to get a paintbrush and made it a little bit larger, with red is a valuable color, and you could actually paint red on this image like that. I'm going to Command Z to undo that. However, you'll notice if you add a layer mask to this guy, you do not have red here anymore. Yes?
Can you go back like 2 steps?
Sure. All right, let's go back. So I've got just a smart object here. I'm going to duplicate it, but I want to be able to work on it. I can't work on it because it's a smart object. So for instance, if you hit the B key, you can't paint on it. You get that little circle with a slash through it because you cannot paint on a smart object. It is protected. To unprotect it, we need to rasterize it. So to rasterize it, you come up to the layer menu, down to smart object, down to rasterize. That's one way of doing it. The other way is the very same menu, but instead of going to smart objects, you go to rasterize first and then pick smart object.
Oh wait, so don't do it.
It's the same thing. Smart object, rasterize, rasterize, smart object. It's the same thing. You end up with the same result. Let's just stick with smart objects, rasterize. Okay, now you could paint on the image if you wanted to. I'm not going to. But what I want to point out to you is that if you add a layer mask to this, That no longer gives you red over here. You do not have red. You cannot pick. You can click on the color picker and bring it up, and you can select red and say, okay, but you do not get red over here because this layer mask is, yet again, a channel. Channels can only have black and white in them, or shades of gray. That's all they can have in them. They cannot hold any color. However, to give you a better idea of what's really going on in this, again, don't do this. Just watch my screen, okay? Don't actually do this because I don't want to get you guys in the habit of thinking this way. But I just want to show you so to make sure that you understand what's going on here. You can get a sense of the emulation of what's really going on behind the scenes here by doing this. Up to the Photoshop, down to preferences, and I think, let me see where it is. Here. Under options, you can click to show your channels in color, and you will see what's really going. Oh, that was a mistake. Oops. Show channels in color. I'm going to go ahead and say okay to this. When you look at the red channel, this is what's really going on. That mask is controlling the amount of red that's actually coming through here. And you can see under here, it's maxing out. You're getting the maximum amount of red. That's because it's also maxing out in the green channel and the blue channel, which is what basically gives you burnt out white hair. But this is what's really going on. The mask is creating this behind the scenes in Photoshop. And this is what the green one looks like, and that's what the blue one looks like. So the mask is what is controlling this. This is nothing but blue light in here. It's just controlling the amount. So there's a lot of blue light in this area up in here. And again, you can see it in my readout in the info palette. It's reading in the 254s. Again, in this area down in here, there's not a lot of blue light at all because it's actually very dark. But anyway, just so that you guys understood that that's what's really going on behind the scenes. However, it's all being controlled by gray scaled masks. These guys right here. We good on that? Okay, put this guy to the side. Let's go after that TIFF file. This guy right here. Yeah, I can get, I'm going to close up my other guy. I'll get back to him later. Okay, so how many people in this room are familiar, comfortable with, and use the pen tool?
I used it.
All right, so wait, you've used it and you hated it because it fucked up on you, because what?
It's really hard to use.
It's really hard to use, right? So nobody actually uses it, right? So I am going to teach you the way to use the pen tool, the correct way to use the pen tool, because in my opinion, and there's 1,000 Photoshop people out there, whatever, that will agree with me, that the pen tool is in many ways the best selection tool that there is in Photoshop as far as a manual selection tool goes. The luminosity method of doing selections that we looked at last week are, in my opinion, I think superior in certain ways, but in certain ways there's shit that you simply cannot do. So what I am going to do for you guys is show you how to use the pen tool correctly and hopefully easily, because again, I think the pen tool is one of those things that they have overcomplicated. If you get lost in this, because your assignment for this week is to actually use the pen tool to outline this figure right here, and to also outline this profile right here, and to also outline this Coca-Cola logo right here. That's going to be your assignment. If you look inside, there are 2 PDFs inside this inside your folder for this week. One of them says it's the pen tool and path PDF. This is actually something that was taken from a recipe book that was written for Photoshop back in the 90s. And it is hands down, this is how I learned to use the pen tool, it is hands down the best way to actually do it. So if you don't remember what we've gone through in this class, even though the video recording seems to be working, which is good news for this class, bad news for my laptop. If you can't remember it, just simply open this up and refer to the notes in here. It will take you through step by step what I'm going to show you right now. So with Viacom selected, Lindsay.
Should we be using our actual pen tool this?
No, you should not. That's a great question. You should not be doing this with your tablet. That is the one thing that you really don't want to do, and I'll explain that why to you in just a second. But let's start with this first, and then I'll explain why. So to use the pen tool, it's actually the P key will actually select the pen tool for you. It's this guy right over here in your column. It sits just above the T key, which is the type key. If you click, the pen tool also has a flyout menu. And you can see on this flyout menu, there is the pen tool, there is the freeform pen tool, there is the add anchor point, delete anchor point, and convert anchor point. So guess what? That's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 5 possible options, right? I'm going to tell you right now, never, ever, under any circumstances, do anything except for the pen tool. So I have just simplified this thing by knocking 80% of the tool out, right? So all those other things, don't ever use them. Just forget about them. They don't exist. Simply click on the pen tool and you're good to go. Well, at least you're good to start with. Forever. Never used one of those other tools in years, and I'm really good with this tool. Oh, and okay, so hang on, I gotta set one other thing up really quick. Don't you find this really annoying that by default it sets up to use these cute little icons? It's just annoying. You do? I hate them. Much better. Okay. Couple other things that we need to do. The minute you actually select any tool, again, your eye should jump up here to the options toolbar up here at the top. At the options toolbar here at the top, you have a drop-down menu. You want to make sure it is set to path and not to shape. Then in terms of make, all of this can stay blank. You don't need to worry about any of these guys right here. These more have to control with multiple paths. We will deal with that part later, so you don't need to worry about these guys. You do need to have the checkbox on auto add and delete turned on. And then finally, this is an important one, click on that little wheel. And I don't know why they give you a little wheel and then there's only one option, but that's where it is. You need to click on the rubber band guy. It's like you think, okay, that should be a drop down of 50 options to really set this guy. There's one.
Just take a checkbox.
Right. Why don't they just put rubber band as a checkbox on the, I don't know, but they don't. Okay, so yes, so you do want that checked. So rubber band is checked, auto and delete is checked, path is the option that you've got. Make sure that the pen tool, the top one, is selected. And then for me, I use keyboard shortcuts for this. So again, I want to zoom into this area that's beginning the V right here. So I'm going to hold down the space bar, add the command key, which gives me the magnifying glass. And I'm simply going to zoom into this. And then when I get into an area that I feel is the right sort of scale for me to be working on, if you let go of the command key and just hold down the space bar, you temporarily get the hand. And this is an important one to have because we are going to use the pen tool, but the pen tool then, once you start it, you need to continue to move around. So when you temporarily hold down the space bar, it temporarily deselects the pen tool, selects the hand tool, gives it to you, lets you move around. But then when you let go, it picks up the pen tool again, and you do not lose where your pen tool was. So if you're in the middle of a path, you will still be in the middle of a path. This will make sense in a little bit. So to use the pen tool, I'm going to start at the top of the V right here. I want everybody to look up at my screen really quick. What I'm going to do is line the crosshairs up on this V right here, just like this, and I'm going to simply click my mouse one time, and it drops down a point. This is the reason I suggest people do not use your tablet to do this, because the problem with a tablet is you start to hover over that point with your cursor, with your stylus, and then you have to make a final move down to actually touch your tablet. And usually that causes that point to slightly move. So using your mouse is far more exact because you can let your mouse rest on that point and actually drop down. So if you feel like you have made a mistake, like I feel like this point is not really correct for me, again, you can use all of those tools to try to move this shit around and do all of that. I do not do that. I simply go over to my history palette and I go back one step. And history is the best way to undo bad path work or pen work than to try and using all those tools and all that other shit. So I'm going to try and hit this again And again, I'm going to hover the crosshairs over it and click once. I feel much better about that point. And then you see this line that's actually coming out. Again, I'm not dragging my mouse. I'm completely let going of my mouse right now. I'm simply moving it to a different point. You do not want to drag at this point. We're going to drag in just a minute. Not at this stage of the game. You do not want to be dragging. This line that I've got was actually going to help me line up where my next point goes. That line is the rubber band. If you turn off the rubber band tool, you'll notice that you do not see it anymore. That line is now gone. It, in my opinion, makes it much, much more difficult to actually get a good path. So that's why I leave it on. And again, so I've got the rubber band. So I'm going to come down to the bottom of the V right here, and I'm going to click another point right there. And so I need you guys to do exactly the same thing with me and go all the way around. And then look at my screen really quick. When you come back to your original point, when you hover over your original point, you get your cute little icon back with a little circle next to it. And that little circle is an indication that you are completing this path. And if you click on that, you are good to go. And you will notice that the little circle goes away and you no longer have, your pen tool is not connected to anything any longer. Did that work for everybody? Okay. If this does not work for you or it stops for you at any point, stop me, okay? So if you come over now to your Layers and Path palette and click on Path, this is what you just created. Again, you can use the drop-down menu to get the large previews of your path, and you can actually see them now, so you can see the V that's actually sitting on that. But you'll also notice that this thing is called Work Path right now, right? Okay. So we're going to go after the I right now. So I'm going to come over, and again, at the very top corner on the left-hand side, I'm going to click to start the I. In this case, I'm going to go rogue and go in the other direction instead of clockwise or counterclockwise. I'm going clockwise, and back up to the top and click on the little icon again to close the path. And now you'll notice that that second path actually got loaded in the work path as well. And all of this part is actually seeming to work out really, really well for us, right? So I'm going to hold down the space bar, and I'm going to click and drag over, and I'm going to go after the A. However, before I do the A, I am going to deselect this work path. So I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to click outside the work path. You'll see it's no longer highlighted. However, the path surrounding the V and the path surrounding the I are still in there. But this path has not been selected now at all, right? Now I'm going to go after my A, and I'm going to start down here at the bottom, and I'm going to click, and I'm going to start to drag my first line, and look what happened to your work path. The work path is a temporary holding spot, and if it is not active, you lose everything that is on that work path. Does that make sense what just happened? So the V and the I are now gone because Photoshop thinks, oh, he wanted to start a new temporary work path. Work path, by definition, is always temporary. So this sucks for me. So to undo that, go back in history to when you said close path. You will see that the V and the I are on your work path again right now. In order to not lose these guys, you need to save them. To save them, you click on this flyout menu and you come down to Save Path. And you name your path VI and say OK. Now you'll see that you actually have the VI as name. Now when you click outside of it and come over and start the A, you'll notice you get the temporary work path again. It doesn't do anything to the VI. It simply gives you the temporary work path. And we can continue on and do the rest of the A. And so now I've actually got the VI on one level and I've got the A on the other level. So paths, pretty much like anything else, you can copy and paste them. So for instance, let's say we wanted to put all of these together. I wanted to actually get the A off the work path and put it up with the VI as well. Simply make sure that the path, work path is highlighted. It is. You can tell it's the lighter of the grays. Come up to the edit menu, come down to copy. You could do cut. If you did cut, it removes your work path because it just put that path on the clipboard. I'm going to hit Command-Z to undo that. Or you could copy it if you want to keep it also on the work path. So I'll do copy. Make the VI active again, and then simply come up and do paste. And you will see that the path got copied here from work path up to the VI. Now again, the work path itself is temporary. So if I click outside of it and then start the C, you'll notice that you lose the A that was on the temporary work path, but it's okay because it's sitting up here on the VI path with you guys. Does that make sense? Okay, so we're finally, is everybody at the C and we're ready to go? All right, so here's the trick. This is the $1 million trick. So I need you to watch this first to see how this goes, because this is how, nobody does it this way. The guy that I learned this from came up with this brilliant system. This is how you simplify the path tool and actually make it work for you. And so this is what you do. So everybody watch my screen first, and then we're going to actually start it, and I'll spend some time going around to make sure everybody gets it. So you select your first point just like we did before. Now there's some people that say that you should be able to describe this entire arc with one pinpoint. I am going to say that is too ambitious. Do not try to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to split this arc into different sections. I'm probably going to do it in 3 or 4 sections to simply make my life much easier and my work much more exact. So I'm going to come over here to a point that if you imagine this is like a clock face, I'm going to come over till around like 10 o'clock. That's where I'm going to go for right here. So here's the trick. Watch this, guys. I am going to click, hold my mouse down, not let go, and drag in the direction that I want my path to go. So you'll notice I'm continuing to drag down in the direction where my path is headed. When that happens, you will get these 2 handles that actually fly out. These 2 handles actually control the shape of your line. So in my case right now, the closer my handle is to the original part, you'll see the more it has an impact, the curve, right to the point that I'm close to right now. You can see the point that's bending right now. Where I started up on the original C is not changing hardly at all, but where the action really is happening is around this black point where I am right now. The more you drag those lines out, the reverse holds true. As you start to get these lines, the line way drawn out, it starts having an impact much closer to the original first point than to the point that I'm at right now. Your job is to instinctively find the place where it perfectly traces the line like mine is doing right now. And then you let go of your mouse. When you let go of your mouse, hopefully you do not get the spinning ball of death. You will see that you have, again, the rubber band is actually happening here, but this is the trick. So this is the one to pay attention to. This is the takeaway from tonight. This is the trick. Bring your pinpoint back to the point that you just made. Hold down the Option key and click on that point, and you'll see that one of your handles goes away. This is how you get the pen tool to work. Because by doing that, every time now that I go to start, I'm starting with a fresh new point without a control handle that is controlling the curve that I'm trying to continue. The frustration that most of you have had if you use the pen tool at all is that you set a point, you draw, you get the curve you want, but then you go to do the second point and that first curve point is controlling your next line. And you can't do it. So again, watch my screen really quickly. I'm going to simply finish the C, and then I want you guys to do it. So I'm going to pick my next point right here, click and drag in the direction that you want the curve ultimately to go. Use the distance and the twisting of this to get that line to be perfectly lined up. Let go of the mouse point, come back and hover over the center point, hold down the Option key, and click to get rid of it. Finally, come down to the bottom. Drag your mouse point out, And you remember I said to you guys right here, yeah, well, it'll work, never mind. I'm gonna drag out here. I'm gonna click and again, bring my cursor back, hold down the Option key, click to get rid of that point. I'm still in the middle of using my pen tool, but I'm feeling crowded over here. So I'm holding down the space bar to get the hand and simply moving this into the middle of my screen so that I can then finish the C. And again, I'm just going to drop this into more manageable chunks. And then finally, no click and drag at all to finish it. So I need you guys to start and try this now and see how it goes.
Question.
Yes.
Okay, so I did the C and I copied the A.
You copied it, but you didn't cut it. It's okay. It doesn't matter. We can get rid of it if you want to. You've already got to see that you don't actually want to do that part right now. So let's just see. I think it'll do the exact same thing. Just go ahead and copy this right now. So up to edit, copy. And then just go right back up here and paste.
You press it.
And you should be good to go. And with your work path right now, click outside of it. And just, yeah, and now when you start to go, it'll start to go there. Or you can simply click on this guy right here on the top of the eye and do your own there.
Yeah, I saw it, it's out of it.
It doesn't matter, yes.
I did something.
Yeah, you did. Okay, so when things screw up, do not try, this is the whole point. When things screw up, don't go after the change point tool or the whatever point tool. Just start going back in history until you see where things to unscrew you up.
Why can't I get that right?
No, keep going back. Okay, at this point right here, just bring your cursor out over here to see. Okay, so at this point, this is the point you want to click on. So hold down. Oh, well then if that's not perfect, click one more to go back, and now click and drag your line out again. But again, you're being too ambitious. Click down here. You're being too ambitious. Yeah, don't go after the 9 o'clock spot. Go after something, pick a spot down in here. Try that.
So how do we make this not curvy anymore?
Okay, so again, when you come back over
Keep
here,
trying to click on
and
it, it's not
hold down the
curvy.
Option key and click on it. Good. Click. And you got rid of the second line. Let go of the Option key and do your next one. So click and drag out. Perfect. Let go, come back, hold on the Option key, click, and get rid of that point.
Gotcha.
You're on the road.
266. Oh, wait. Oh, just kidding.
So guys, how hard is it to use the pen tool?
Really so hard.
Right?
Oh, it's not.
Okay, wait, no, we're getting to, don't worry, we're getting to figure. We're getting to figure, don't worry, we're getting there. So is there anybody not able, is anybody struggling with this guy? Are we okay? So let's go ahead and finish the O, do the same thing. What I'd like you to do is start with the outside of the O. It's just as a typical, you don't have to do it this way, but the way most people work is always from the outside in. It's just simpler to keep it in mind that way. So you start with the outermost, get it first, and then go to your innermost. Again, I've got my C on this work path right here, so I am going to cut it and put it back up with my VI. And then I'm going to continue to do all the work on my VI. There's no point in going to that temporary work path every single time. If you simply select your VI to make it active, you then, as long as it stays active, all of your work will happen here. Again, do not be too ambitious about this. That circle, that O, is not something that you want to get with 4 points. You're going to be too ambitious about that, and you'll be sort of close, but you won't really be there. Somebody who's really good, there are people who do competitions with this shit, if you can believe it. Yeah, there really is. Okay, but to show you, or to just further to tell you how important this path tool is, the pen tool is, there are entire factories, I don't mean just a group of people, factories in India that do nothing but this. You send them your Photoshop file, and they do pen selection of everything, and then they send it back to you. So for people who do cars, this is a huge thing. Anybody who works on cars. So if you have a car, a picture of a car that's done, you send it to one of the path giants in India, and it comes back with a path for every single nut and bolt every single antenna division, every single bolt on the windshield wiper, every single highlight and shadow that's on the metal. They come back with hundreds of thousands of paths that give people the ability to retouch cars. So just so you know, there's people out there that value this work. If you get the outside of the O done, then you can actually click on the inside and do it. And what you should notice is, if you look at your path palette, is that Photoshop actually understands that this guy is nested inside of the other one. And when we actually go to work with this, you will notice that part too.
Wait, to jump from that one to the other one, you do what?
You had just simply had to finish the outside one and start the inside one. And then finally, it didn't work?
Did you click? Yes, it
Did you finish your outside path?
You
Yeah,
could,
but
yeah.
then if I press it again,
It'll pop up.
yeah, but then it goes away.
No, because you're working on the wrong work path.
Okay, so yeah, you need you're on this work path right here, so just click on there and see what happens. There you go. Click and drag. Good. Option key. Command Z. Got it. Let's do it. Okay, so I'm just going to finish my guy up right here. Over. Okay. So finish up your whatever letter you're working on right now. You don't need to finish this. This is not part of your homework, so you're not going to turn it in. But, so I've actually got this thing outlined as a path right now, which is great for me. So, but I want to use it. So I'm going to hit Command click to actually load this as a selection. Command click on a path loads it as a selection, just like Command click on anything loads it as a selection. I'm going to go back into my layers palette. I'm going to, yes.
Didn't do that outside.
Sure it did. I don't know why you got that guy over there. That had to be back in history. So wait, your path is actually now selected. Click outside of this. Then click on this guy again. Do Command C or Command X, because you really want to cut it. So it's really want to do. And then Command B. It gives you the C, but it's a weird one in there. No, this actually happened before. I've seen this actually happen before. Don't worry about it right now.
Yeah, mine, when I copied and pasted it, it just did the little O, but then I did it again, and then it did the entire thing. Yeah,
Right.
Oh, wait,
it just did the
it's
inside.
doing something weird.
Of course it is.
Cause I can get one, but I can't get the other.
No, I just, yeah, that's what I was saying. Oh, great. Yeah, don't worry about it. Because you're not going to be doing a lot of this kind of stuff in the path work we're doing. It's going to be one path on one path, you know, level of path on one of these. I don't know what you really call these guys. It's not a layer on a path layer. Anyway, so I'm going to come back into the layers palette. I'm going to go up to the very top. I'm going to select to put on a brand new layer on the top of this, and I'm going to fill mine with red because red was my foreground color. Command D to deselect. You cannot get a more precise selection going than this as far as that part goes.
Did you want us to go and select all of it or no?
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. I was just showing you that you can actually do something with your path once you create it. So, in my path palette, this is where all my paths are, right? I'm going to simply click on that to select it and Command click on the icon. It loads it as a selection. And then again, with an active selection going, you can do anything you want to with an active selection. So I was just going to fill mine with red because red was my foreground color. Or I could change this to blue or cyan, turquoise.
How did you fill it with red though? Like I have the extra layer and then I have it.
Your foreground color, what's your foreground color? Black, so fill it with black. I'm just using Option Delete to fill it with, Option Delete fills with foreground color, Command Delete fills with background color. Did that work? Here, I'll do it. I'll hit the D key default mine. Mine's now black. Option Delete fills it with black. Command Delete fills it with white, and you can't really see it, but anyway. And then Command D to deselect.
No.
So are we good on this, guys? Okay, there's a couple things that we need to know about this, though. If you've done this, get rid of your Viacom that you've actually added, because I want you to be able to see the path itself. Sometimes we need to be able to actually work on these guys. So if you click on the path, what you'll notice, if you make the path active, you'll notice that you just got the outline. The path outline exists. As a matter of fact, let's try this another way. Click outside of the path. Go into your layers palette and turn off the eyeball that says Viacom. The eyeball that says Viacom is actually the pixel type that was actually what we were tracing. Now come back into the path, and when you click on the path to make it active, these are the actual paths right here. This is the part that actually exists. If you zoom in to one of these, I'm going to zoom into the V again. There's a couple of tricks. If we actually need to manipulate this path, you need to know how to do that. So it's going to be the last tool set. This is the last of the path part. This is the slightly trickier part, but you can see that so far things have been relatively straightforward and easy. So the next part is this. If you want to actually work on a path once it's been created, you need to come over, and it's actually the pen tool is right here. The type tool is right underneath it. Right underneath the type tool is this black-headed arrow. It's the path selection tool. Underneath that is a white-headed arrow that is the direct selection tool. I want you to click on the black one first, just the path selection tool. If you come over now and click on your V, you will notice that you get all of the points again in that one path. Now, we don't have any of the other paths. We didn't pick up the I path or the A path. If you wanted to add those to your selection, you would hold down the Shift key, and then you could click on the I to go ahead and select it. If you want to get rid of the second one you selected on, you simply keep the Shift key down and click on it again. This is a whole lot like making selections. That part's pretty much standard. But the issue with this is that if you wanted to manipulate this V, what this tool does, it's selected the path for you. You can now click on the path itself and move it around. You can actually change where it is. However, you cannot change any of the individual points. To do that, you need to use a different tool. So I'm going to move mine up here like this, and then I'm going to simply hit Command Z to bring it back to its original spot. If you do not hold down the Shift key and simply click on the I, it'll get rid of your V selection and go ahead and select all the guys on the I. Make sense? But now let's say I want to actually change one of the points of the V. Let's say, for instance, I got really close, but I'm missing one of the things, and I can't go back in history because I've done all the other letters already, and I don't want to try to find this again, but I want to tweak just one of these little points. To do that, select outside of the path so that you do not have any of those points visible. And then you need to change that double-headed arrow from path selection, the black one, to the direct selection tool, the white one. When you do that now and you come over and you click on the path, you will see that what looks like what you thought happened actually is the same, but it is not, because what now has happened is that all of those little points are actually transparent. When we used the black-headed tool, all of those things were black, all those points were black. But with the white-headed tool now, they're all white. However, I want to select just one to change it. So let's say I want to select this corner. If I click directly on that point, what should happen is that point actually just went black. And with it black, all the other points are frozen except for that black one, and you can move the black one around. Does that make sense?
Mine are all still black.
Then you needed to click outside so that you had nothing active. Click on the white selection, the direct selection white arrow, then click on your path again, and they should all be, essentially they're supposed to be clear. then click on the one you want to adjust. It's the only one that turns black and you can adjust. You can also hold down the shift key and select a second one, and then you can move two of them together. They stay in relationship together. Does that make sense what's going on here? We good on this one? Okay, I'm going to go back in history a couple of steps. If Command Z only takes you back one move, if you want to go back continually using your keyboard shortcuts, it's Command Option and then hit the Z key and you can get back to where we were originally. I want to do it's going to be the last thing I'm actually going to show you. I'm going to come over to the M. Did everybody actually get the M finally built? Okay, then do the M for me really quickly, if you will. So simply, again, select on your V key, hit the pen tool, the P key, and simply draw the M out for me really quickly, if you would. It shouldn't take that long. There's no curves. And let me know when you're done. No pressure. Good? We good? Okay, so here's the challenge. What I want to do is do the dovetail for this L, which basically what it means is I want to do a new shape that actually gives me the indents, the negative spaces underneath this L. And then I'll do some shape down here on the bottom. I don't care what the shape on the bottom is. Does that make sense what I want to do here? So what I want is, instead of this selected here, I want to do the path that will be this space inside here. Make sense what I'm going for? So what a lot of people will do is they will simply try to draw this out again. They will select this, whatever, and then they'll come down here to do the, whatever. Again, what I'm looking for is the key to go in this lock. I'm looking for the male to go in this female. That's what I'm doing here. Does that make sense? Okay, so, but trying to draw a second path, what do you think the likelihood is that you are going to have a perfect fit? Not slim, 0. Will not happen. You will be off. I promise you this. So there's a different way of doing it. And the different way of doing it is this. I want you to go ahead and select the black-headed arrow guy again, and I want you to select the M, the one that you just made, the entire path. All of the little points should be black. This actually should be where we want this. And I want you to copy this. Command C or up to the edit menu and down to copy. And then I want you to create a new path. So come over to your flyout menu down here and come over to new path. And it will say, okay, we're going to name this the new path, and I'm going to call this M Dovetail. Dovetail refers to a furniture term that's basically how you fit joints together. There's a male and female part, and it's called dovetailing. So anyway, with this new guy actually selected, we just made one, so it's now the active channel. Hit Command V, which is the paste key, and I'll actually put it into place. So what I want to do now is I want to use the points that exist already that are building up this side of my dovetail. Does that make sense? So what I need to do is I need to get rid of these other points. To get rid of the other points, you do this. You select outside of it to get rid of the selection so that none of your points are active. You come over to the white-headed arrow now. You click on the path to load this, so this is now all the white points are loaded. Then you click on the top M right up here, this top point right up here. I'm going to click on that once. It makes it black. All the rest of them are still clear, and you hit the delete key, and that point goes away. Now you've got a whole lot of other sets now of black points, which is not what you want to do. So again, I'm going to click outside of this, click on it again to get the white points back. I'm going to click on this bottom segment of the line right here, this point right here, hit the delete key. It gets rid of that guy. Again, click on the outside, click again up here on this top point up here to make that the black one, and click on that. That has now gotten rid of all of the uncommon points for me. Does that make sense? So the points that were not common. Then simply hit the P key to get the pen tool. come over and click on any one of these points and it will pick up your path again. And then I'm gonna just come over here and finish this as if this was another path. This is now the dovetail to my M. So to see if this works, I'm going to load this as a selection. Simply Command click to load it. I'm going to go back into layers. I'm going to add a blank layer on top, and I'm going to fill it with black. Command D to deselect. I'm going to go back into my path palette. I'm going to make the Viacom active.
Can you go back 3 steps?
Mm-hmm. Did you finally finish the path itself?
Yeah.
The dovetail, right? Okay. I want to load this as a selection. How do I do that? Command click on just the icon. This is now an active selection, right? Go back into layers. Create a new layer. Fill this. Black is my foreground color. I'm just going to fill this with black. Option delete. Command D to deselect. I got a little boat. Back into the path palette. Make sure that Viacom is now active. Command click to load that as a selection. Back into my layers palette. Still working on that same layer. And I'm going to fill this with black as well. Command D to deselect. You will notice that in the very center of this, this was a perfect dovetail. However, in the very center of this, you've actually got a 1 pixel width that is not filled with black. And the reason that does not exist with black is that's the actual width of the path. But it doesn't get more exact than that. Make sense? All right, are we good on that one? All right, then let's do something challenging. Let's get rid of this guy. You don't need to save it. It's not part of your homework. However, that other file is part of your homework. I take that back. That's not part of your homework, but anyway. Okay, so this guy right here, I want to work on this guy. I'm actually going to go to my application frame again. Okay, so this is actually new in CC7, I think. Yeah, as Photoshop 2017. It used to be that in Photoshop you could not use your tool outside of the of your image area. You had to go to the pasteboard to do that. You guys remember that? So for instance, I've got the pen tool selected right now. Every time I would take the pen tool outside of my image, it would go back, it would become the cursor again. It was no longer the pen tool. That looks like that has changed in 2017, and it's sort of a welcome change if you want to know the truth. Does yours do that? Does it become a cursor on the outside? Okay, if yours does become a cursor on the outside, hit the F key 1 time, and you will go to what is called the pasteboard. This is how I would have done it anyway in 2016. So with the pasteboard now, your pen tool should still stay the pen tool once you get outside the image. Does it?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to zoom in to the lower part of this girl right down here. We are going to outline this girl. So the amount of focus that you come into, the zoom scale that you come into is important in this. I typically work on a normal 35 millimeter image. I typically work somewhere between a 100 and a 200% view. To see what your view really is, you have to get out of the pasteboard. Don't do this, and get rid of the application frame until I can actually see it. So in my case right here, I'm at 100%. That's where I'm at right on my guy right here. So going back into the pasteboard, I'm going to lose that. And I feel like that's probably good enough for me to start. If it was really intricate, whatever, I might actually zoom in one more. This would be a 200% scale right here. And actually the 200 does feel a little bit better. So that's how I'm going to do mine. So to start this pen tool selection, I'm actually going to do exactly what I said to you guys. However, there's a couple of things I don't want you to think about when you're doing this, because we're going to spend the rest of the class doing this. Everybody look at my screen here really quick. So what you need to think about when you're doing the pen tool is where you actually drop your points. Where you drop your points is incredibly important, and it works like this. If you imagine that you've got hill and valley and hill and valley and hill, again, that's what we're gonna actually do here. The pen tool excels at doing curves. That's what it does its very best. So you want the tool to do the curve itself, the whole curve. So what that means for me, I always think of it this way. I always think of sides of the mountain, sides of the mountain, sides of the mountain, and this is what that means. You want to pick the side of the mountain here and the side of the mountain here so that the curve actually does the curve, so that the pen tool does this arc, which is completely different than picking a spot right here and then a spot right here. You are now in trouble when you do this. You can sort of describe part of this arc. It gets to be really difficult to do, but you're also wasting the power of the curve. The power of the curve really does a good job at describing this part. It does a lousy job at trying to then continue this on. Does that make sense? So it's always, I'm always thinking to myself, sides of the mountain, sides of the mountain, sides of the mountain. That's what you're actually looking for. The other thing that you need to keep in mind here is two things. Number one, I'm going to actually outline this. I'm knocking the girl out of this, right? So I'm going to do a pen tool, and I'm going to try to draw along the line of this girl right here. If I make a small mistake, and I'm a little bit on the inside of the line right here, and I stay a little bit on the inside, whatever, and I create a mask, it's going to cut off part of that skirt. Say what? Yeah. If I lose part of the skirt, who the fuck's gonna know? But no, we need to carry this thought through. Does that make sense what I'm talking about here? If I make a mistake, if I have to err on one side of this or the other, if I make my curve stays just a little bit on the inside of this skirt, whatever, and then I load that as a selection, knock this out, I lose all of the background and the slightest little bit of the edge of that skirt, right? That's livable. Nobody's going to know that if you really want to know the truth. However, if I make the other mistake, everyone will know. If my pen path is slightly in the background and I go up like this and I cut that out, you're going to have background still in this image and everybody's going to know. So where do you want to make your mistake? And you always want to err on the side of the figure you want to keep, not what you want to get rid of. Does that make sense? And finally, the last thing in this, you will be tempted to draw straight lines with this. There's areas, you could argue that this area going straight up here like this, whatever, is relatively straight. If you do straight lines, they stand out. People spot them really, really easily. So the trick is, no matter how subtle, put a slight bit of bend in any of the lines that you're going to do. And that way they end up more organic. Make sense? So I'm going to show you, give me 1 second really quick. I want everybody to watch my screen just to give you some idea of my pace and how I do this. So if this was somebody who was paying me $20,000 to knock this girl out, this was a huge ad, this was going to be the next L'Oreal ad, I would literally go back in. You see every one of these small little indentations in here. I would get every single one of those guys. You guys aren't paying me that much, so I'm not going after that part. However, I am going to try to be somewhat true to this. I'm starting outside the image right here because I can start outside. It's just an easier place to do it. And then again, I'm going to start and I'm going to come in. And again, I'm staying on the inside and I'm putting a slight bend in this, holding down the Option key and coming up. And again, what I can also realize and say about this is that if you feel like we're missing too much of all this little fine detail, the little feathery stuff in here, once I get this selection built, there's no reason that I cannot go into the Refine Mask tool and actually see if I can recover just parts of this. Does that make sense? Yes.
Before when you open it, you rasterize it. Should we have it rasterized?
It doesn't matter. Pen tool, because we're not gonna copy anything. We're not doing anything. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Good question though. Okay, so I need everybody to start this. What I need you to do though is one thing. Look up at my screen here really quick. You're gonna reach this point of her hand right here. So this throws everybody. When you get up to this point right here, people's temptation is to continue along the skirt. That leaves you in no man's land. You do not want to do that. You want to stay on the outside edge of this girl. Do not worry about this. This is an interior part right here, just like the center of the O was in the Viacom. So you would come up here like this, You would get the center part of this finger, you would get the inner part of that finger, whatever, and continue around like this. You need to continue all the way around until you get up to here. Let me show you where I want you to stop if you get there ahead of me. I want you to stop when you get to this lapel right here. Look at the chromatic aberration on this guy.
Yeah.
So no, again, that's just telling me they fucking haven't gotten this goddamn machine set up right. Chromatic aberration should be on by default, and it isn't.
How dare they?
Son of a bitch. So anyway, I'm going to see if I can get it out right now. Again, because I have a smart object. Look at this. None of this stuff. Look at that. Oh, wow. You think there's much distortion in that lens? Yeah.
Do you want us to do that too?
It doesn't matter. Your machine should be set up correctly, I hope.
Do you still want us to go back and hit option on the points?
To do what?
Hit option on the points?
What do you mean? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yep. And don't, okay, everybody look at my screen really quick right here. You might be tempted in this finger area right here to think that this is a sharp point. It is not. So again, think about the valleys and the sides of the mountain. I'm gonna click right here to set that side of the mountain. I'm gonna click here and I'm going to drag a curve into where that finger area would be and like that, because that is not a straight point. So don't go in there and make that like a sharp pencil point. Yeah, because it's not. And again, use your space bar to get the temporary hand to move your screen around so that you can keep doing this. And when you get up to the top color, let me know.
How much are you airing on the side of?
As little as I possibly can. I'm actually hoping that you'll just get it perfectly. I'm simply saying if you have to make a mistake, that
But if you were airing on the side of caution for
there's no caution in life. No, you don't have fun. This isn't homework. No. So sadly, you have to watch your screen while you do this, because this would be one of those great sort of mindless things that. Okay, I need everybody to look at my screen really quick because I don't think, and I'm worried that we're going to run out of time, and I want to make sure I finish this. So I don't want you guys to stop right now. I'll get you to finish one side. I'm actually going to myself go ahead and finish the whole thing because I think I'm maybe ahead of a few of you guys anyway. What I wanted to point out here is that when you're working on the pasteboard, that again, you can set points way out here in the pasteboard. So I've come to this. I'll show you where I am on this. So for me, this is what I do. I've come up to this lapel right here, and then I get into all this hair. There's no way I can select all this hair using this tool, and I can't do it on this side either. So I simply came straight across her body like this, and now I'm starting on this side, and I'm working my way down this edge right here. Makes sense? But once I get onto this area right here, I want to start coming in on this part right down here. So I don't want to come at a point like this. I'm actually going to come down and come up like this. All of these points that sit on the outside, you don't need to worry about them. It will remember them, but they won't have any impact on your image. It just makes it easier to orient yourself to get a good handle on where you're sort of like heading next.
Do you want to get the part where it's like fading
The out of focus part, you mean?
the line?
Let me see what you're talking about.
Yeah. Not the
Like super
straightest
sharp?
line.
Yeah, yeah. So keep it on the inside. It'll be good. Okay, so I have finished mine. with one exception. I've got that little spot in by her hand right here. Okay, so I have got mine pretty well done. However, what I don't have going is the hair part. So if you guys want to do this with me, all you need to do is actually bring your path, just come all the way over to the right side and just come back around to your beginning part so that at least you have part of your path actually done. You just need to finish up your path on some level because unless you're going to finish your path in the next 5 minutes, we're not going to have time to finish doing this, and we've got more to get through in this guy because I do not have this girl selected yet. Got it?
So just over to the right.
Yeah, just come straight over to the right, come down, and get back to your original point. You can see how I've done mine. I kicked way out. So just come straight across. Come down on the pasteboard over, back to your startup point. You'll have one edge or part of one edge to see how good this works. You won't have any of the other edge, and that part doesn't matter. You'll have plenty of time to work on your homework file this week. Okay, so I'm going to continue to go on with this because I feel like we need to get this part done just so you guys see how this whole thing works. So back in my path palette, this is a work path. That is a very dangerous thing to have. Again, we already know that if you click outside of it and click one point, all of that work is gone. So you need to save these things. So again, I'm going to save this path, and I'm going to call it body. And say OK to that. And now I don't matter what I do, as long as I save my file, body will always be there. So I'm going to load body as a selection. I'm going to command click to load this as a selection. And I'm going to save this as a selection. So I'm going to come up to the select menu, and I'm going to come down and do save selection, and I'm going to call that body knockout. Sure. So, and then I'm going to hit Command D to deselect that. And then I want you to look at my body knockout 1. And I'm going to zoom into this so that you can actually see what mine looks like. And what you will see is this. This is the pen tool at its very best. However, and this is a huge however, it is too perfect. If you use this to knock this girl out right now, it will look like you took an X-Acto knife and traced it around and cut her out. That is not what you want, okay? So this is what I want you to do instead. I'm going to save my body knockout 1, and I'm going to do another version of it and call it body knockout 2, and I'll show you how, and this is how you are going to use the pen tool for the rest of this class. You will never do something that is this sharp edge unless you do, well, like the Viacom thing can be this sharp an edge, but for all the image work that you do, you never want it to be this sharp. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to load body knockout again as a selection, then up to the select menu, down to modify, down to feather. And I'm going to put a 1 pixel feather on this guy and say, okay. I'm going to save that now as body knockout 2. I did a 1 pixel feather.
And you just did
And
what?
then you reselect the seed, you said?
Let me show you again. Let's just go through it again. Everybody watch. Everybody watch. Okay, so I've got my body knockout 1. So I need to do this again, but I need to soften that edge. So command click to load body as a selection. Before you save it, you come up to the select menu, down to modify, down to feather. And I'm putting in a 1 pixel radius feather on this and say okay. And then I'm going to save that selection and call it body knockout 2. And say okay to that. Command D to deselect. And then let's look at the difference. This is 1, too sharp. This is 2. See, it just took that little bit of an edge off of it. Does that make sense? Your compositing will be far more believable if you do this little bit of softening. And guys, we use this tool to death in this class. And if you do not start softening these selections, it's going to be really apparent, and I'm going to be pissed. So don't do that. You just need to remember this part, okay? So however, if I double click on the hand and kick back out, this girl has no head. How do I get her head? Say what? Carefully? How do I get this girl's head? Quick selection. Because that worked so well for you on Sunny, didn't it?
No.
Channels. Thank you. It's channels. So I'm going to go look for the best channel. I'm looking for contrast between this girl's hair and the background. So that's what my red channel looks like. My green channel, my blue channel, not so good. Green channel, I'm going with the green channel. That's, oh, they look the same. Look how light that is right there. Light against light. Is that the same? Forget this other shit. I'm just looking for her head. Right? I'm looking for separation between the hair and that building in the background. And I am going green channel for sure. So I'm going to copy the green channel. If you want to try and do this with me, go for it. Try to stay up. All right. So, God damn it. All right. So I'm zooming in. So again, what's my next move? If I want to separate this girl from this background, my next move.
Select.
Points. Right? And where do I select? So I'm going to do one right here. And I'm going to do one sort of right here in this color part of her head. Right here. Next move. No. It's, yeah. It's white over here anyway. I'm really more concerned about this part right here. And I can't use this window right here. It's too dark. Say what? No, I got to change my readouts to give me RGB. Command L means nothing. It gives you readouts in RGB, not in K. Now Command L to bring up the levels dialog box. Watching my menu up there, I'm taking really quickly as far as I can to get to, I got down to 1 there. I'm going to my arrow keys to hit 0. I'm grabbing my white point slider and pulling it back until I hit 252. Back to my arrow keys to get that to 255. I'm still at 0 on this point. Before you say OK, use your preview button to go on and off to make sure that you're actually keeping subtle detail in here that you feel like you want to keep. I feel like I'm keeping all of that, so I'm going to go ahead and say OK to this. I'm going to hit the B key to bring up brush. I'm going to go to my tablet now. I'm going to change my blending mode on my brush to overlay. I'm going to make it a hard brush. I'm going to kick out and say, okay, 100% opacity, 100% flow. Oh, please. Black is going to be, hit the D key to get my foreground and background to their default colors. A little bit smaller, black as my foreground color, hit the X key, a little bit smaller brush, and go ahead and, you mean you can't do that? Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah, there you go. Okay, working on this guy. You only need to care about, hey. You only need to care about actually getting this part right here. If you lose part of that hair, does anybody really know?
No.
There you go. This is going to be problematic. I'll go after that in just a little bit later with something else. I actually make this a softer brush. This is just showing too much. Get rid of all of that. Get rid of that. The rest of this I don't care about. I do care about her nose. Oops. I don't care about the rest of that. I do care about that. That's all edge. That's all good. That's edge, edge, and edge. Zip back out. Change my brush to a normal brush. Definitely a hard brush now. Go after all the rest of this. Every time I do this, it's worth lifting your cursor up every now and then so that if you do make a mistake, you don't have to go completely back to the very beginning of all of this. So this is kind of what's going on. I know I've got a little bit more. Well, I think that part should actually be good. All right, so this is, this part right here. This area right here is still a problem. So again, I'm gonna go to an overlay brush, make it a much smaller brush, and I'm gonna drop my opacity on this down to about 50%, because I'm never gonna get all of this. It's never gonna be perfectly great. Soften that brush up a little bit. Is there anything I'm doing in here you guys don't get? Okay. So now I need to combine this with this. How do I do that? What do I load as a selection? I could load the body. I think I'm going to work the other way, though. I think it's easier. The body's closer to being done than the head. So I'm going to load the head. Simply load that as a selection. I didn't need to pick it. It's now loaded as a selection. I'm going to zoom in on this and take a look and see. Hopefully it's not that bad. I am going to do this with a brush. So hit the B key, make it a little bit larger brush. You do not need to worry about the edge of this now. It can be hard or soft. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to leave mine as soft. You do want to make sure that it is a normal brush and that you are back at that 100% opacity. And then I'm going to simply hit the X key to be painting with white. When you do this, the first pass that you do over here, like I'm doing right now, you need to get the entire pass in one shot. You cannot pick up your cursor and bring it down again. If you pick it up and bring it down again, you destroy the opacity that is on this edge right here. And this is what I mean by that. Ugh. Fuck me. Whoever decided to rework this workstation, I would love to thank in person. So see what's happened right here? This is where I came in with my selection and I painted it. But you see areas of gray hair that are in here. If you hit this a second time, watch what happens. A second time. You start pulling out stuff that really should have been left as transparent. Those gray hairs should have been gray. So if you don't hit this in one pass and you come back and hit it with your brush again, you are going to make this mistake, which you do not want to do. And then finally, that was actually on the completely wrong.
That kept happening to me too.
It's set up here. If you come up to your preferences, to system preferences, I should have just changed this a gazillion hours ago. Under keyboard, under shortcuts, under spotlight, these two things need to be turned off and that will quit happening. You would think I would have done that, right? Okay, back to my body knockout right here. Let me zoom in now on this guy. B key, normal brush. Blah, 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 blah.
So they just both have to be selected.
I'm just using the selection to paint on my body. It's not selected.
Oh,
The only thing that is actually selected is the head. Okay. Yeah, hey, crowd goes wild. I think there's something missing right here. Actually, it's a highlight that's on her skin that is missing right there. Command D to deselect. Again, with a completely hard brush for this, so I don't overspray anything. Simply knock that out. Okay, so let's see how well we did. Say what? Yeah, it actually does, and it should work beautifully too. So we'll see how it goes. I'm going to go ahead and copy this layer. I am going to put, well, let's see, I can do, well, we'll see. So I'm going to load this. I'm going to put it on as a layer mask. You don't see any shift right here, but I'm going to do other things in terms of shifting with this guy. I'm, for instance, going to add a black and white layer to this and put this guy, oh, we'll leave it down here and we'll do black and white background, and this girl's knocked out and she's now in black and white background. Say what? No, that, but look at the quality of that mask. Are you fucking kidding me? Look at that. That's insane. Just telling you guys, this is the tool everybody uses to do this kind of work with. Could I go in and refine parts of this? Sure, of course I could. There's a gazillion things that I could do. But I'm just wanted to sort of give you that sort of overview really quickly. Are there questions about this?
Why'd you make us do Sunny without it?
How much information can I get you in one shot? That's why you get to do Sunny again. But the only real advantage to Sunny actually isn't one. There are a couple of places. The sweater is a really good one to use the pen tool on. More importantly, you remember the girl that we did last week, though, the Hair Fantasia one? You remember how that whole side of her cheek, there was just no way to get that? This is the tool you use to get that, and it's so simple because you can spot it, and you just arc it down, and it's done. Yes?
Do you recommend using the pen tool over the lasso tool?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We don't even use the lasso.
The lasso tool is too hard. You're actually trying to draw with the lasso tool. What the pen tool really lets you do is start and stop and start and stop and you're much, much, much more precise. I mean, look at this. I couldn't do that with the lasso tool, no matter how good I was. Okay, are there questions about this? Okay, I have 4 minutes that I would show you one other thing, but we've clearly run out of time for that, so we will get to it next week. But we got through the majority of what I wanted to get through tonight. So again, your assignment for the next thing is, because we do have time to look at that really fast.
Don't save this.
You do not need to save it. If you want to finish, save it and continue to work on it, that's fine. You don't have to. Okay, is this right here? Oh, and drop your homework, drop your homework, drop your homework. So the assignment for this is you are going to knock this girl out. You are going to place her on this background. You're going to knock this girl out and place her on this background again. And then finally, you're going to outline the Coca-Cola path. And all you need to do is outline that. You don't need to put it anywhere else. Are we good?
Yeah.
All right, so as far as homework goes, I'll show you who I have. All right, so this is what I have. All right, everybody got signed in on the sign-in sheet too, right? All right, am I waiting for anybody else to drop? Okay, no, just that says it all.
Don't ever call it that again. I'm spin dip. You call it spin art instead. Spin art. Did you know today's National Margarita Day? No, it's not.
Every day
That's
is not
not
Wednesday.
Yes, they put it on Wednesday.
Why is
That
it
is
Monday?
so dumb. Margarita should always be
Wait.
on Mondays.
It should always be on Mondays.
Always.
All right.
Monday.
Flacco's Tacos and
And
Margarita
one-
Mondays, $3 margarita, and they're
Guess what they're
good.
doing today?
Okay.
They give me bad headaches, but they're really strong.
What are they doing today? You get to buy a margarita and all you get like Mardi Gras beans.
That's so
No, they
dumb.
emailed me saying they have tacos today.
Well, yeah, margarita one is.
You can email. That says something.
I hate Flacco's tacos.
So many good how do you hate
They gave me food poisoning during tacos. You made yourself food poisoning.
You're sure it was Flacco's
I
Tacos?
yes, I am 90% sure, and I would. Okay, I'm 100% sure. I ate it almost immediately afterwards, I was on the toilet with a bucket in my hand.
But just
The
so
whole
you know, food poisoning takes 6 hours.
Yeah, that's
to
what I was
get
gonna
it, to kick in. So
Really?
it's- Yeah,
Like,
4 to 6
Yeah, it's
hours.
probably what you
I
had
got
for lunch.
Yeah, it's 4 to 6 hours.
Am I waiting for anybody else? Are we good?
Unless you had flacos for one thing.
Yeah, because I got food
Probably.
poisoning. It was
Oh,
all 6
stop.
hours.
I just love
You're just hating.
It's like my favorite.
Food poisoning sucks.
I'm pretty sure that's what I had.
Basically anyone. No, because you'd be seeing anyone enjoy it, but like you'd be like smiling around. I was in like bed rest. I was.
Okay.
You gotta see. Well, I'm actually. Which is actually closer to you. Gotta ask me earlier, Blue. You see, wait.
I'm going anyways, so.
Well, if for some reason you have a hand in the part. Come on, back next.
That's right.
So I've been seeing a bunch
See ya.
of businesses recently. Have a good week.
No.
I'll take that as a yes. Do you wanna come to do this?
I feel awful.
I do.
And it's my roommate's birthday, so.
Aw, tell her happy birthday,
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.